least 3 years before I'm even.
Yep. Yep.
And
a lot of like the instructional assistants at BECC started as like moms.
Oh.
So like Liz Bonavita, like her kids went there, and then she
Okay.
became mom. And then there's a couple of like aides. So there's the instructional assistants, and then
Yeah,
there's
there's like
the
3
aides.
adults in the.
Yep, and a lot of them started as kind of like moms. That kind
Okay.
of.
I didn't know like the hierarchy. I just know, oh, there's 3 teachers in
Teachers,
there.
right? And that's
And
the
Miss
cool.
Courtney was, the teacher,
Right.
and then we had Miss Amy and Miss Ashley.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's kind of the cool thing. Like, you don't know. Like,
Yeah.
and I love that when I walk into the rooms, and I'm like, everybody's engaged, working
Yeah.
with kids. Everybody's enjoying themselves. The kids are happy. The teachers are happy. And,
Gwyneth had a blast.
yeah.
It was still funny because we looked at a couple other preschools. I'm like, I'm limiting it to 3 because if I look at every
You go
preschool
crazy.
in Burlington,
Yep.
my head will explode. So we went to 3 open houses, and I asked her, I said, I wanted her to go to BECC, but I'm like, she's the one that's going to have to be there.
Yeah.
Which school do you want to go to? I like the one near BCAT.
Oh.
Really? Why? They have the best toys.
Ah, there you go.
I'm like, okay. And then the teachers told me, yeah, but the toys at the open house might not be the same when school starts.
No.
But then she found out they had a sensory table,
Yeah. Always.
and
yeah.
she was sold.
Yeah.
Because one of the other classes that we looked at, one of the other schools, had the sensory table set up when we were there. She just spent all of her time there.
Yeah. She liked it. It's fun. Yep. Yep. That's how little ones learn. So.
She's happy, and it was so funny because every up I had my son with me. He was trying to break into the school.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When
Miss
can I
Courtney's
go?
like, I wish somebody was that excited to see me every day. Like, here, you want him?
Take them right. Yeah.
No, they're both very good kids.
Good. Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's itching. He's itching to go to school with Gwyneth.
It's fun.
Just want to review these. Hopefully you don't, do you need any notes?
I don't think so.
Okay.
If I can't answer those, I should probably be fired. And the superintendent showed him, and we talked about it. He's like, is it okay if I don't come with you tonight? And I'm like, well, I didn't think you were coming with me tonight. He goes, all right, well, I was thinking maybe I'd stay in the office. I'm like, no.
No, you don't have to come. No, because at some point I'm going to, start badgering him to come on my show.
He would love that. He could talk a dog off a meat wagon. No, he'd come. Yeah.
So.
And the assistant, Patrick Lacken, you could do like technology.
Okay. That would be cool.
Yeah.
All the kids with the iPods now.
Yep.
Or iPads.
Yep, it's a big
iPods,
piece.
iPads, iPhones.
Yep.
I just.
Devices are one-to-one devices.
Devices.
Yeah.
Electronic
Yep.
devices. Yes, my children know how to work my smartphone
Better
more than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it's fun.
Hi, and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, your host, and thank you for tuning in this evening. In a few moments, we will be talking about, with the new school year approaching, we will be talking about special education in Burlington and what resources are available for parents, students, and maybe teachers. But before I begin, I would like to say, if you do have a question, please feel free to call in this evening. The phone number here is 781-270-9199. or if you think of a question afterwards, or you're more comfortable with email, or you have a suggestion for a future topic, please feel free to email me at talk@bcattv.org. And another thing before we begin, I need to thank the crew here because they're pretty much all volunteers, a couple of staff people, but without them, this show would not be possible and BCAT really wouldn't be possible. So first I'd like to thank Corey McNeil and Mike Duvall, who are staff members here, pulling everything together, holding everything, making everything work and look good. And I would also like to thank JT Marchant and Colleen Moore, who are volunteers here, and they come every couple of weeks to help me out. And they're also volunteers, and I really appreciate their dedication. So thank you guys for coming. And one last thank you, I would like to thank my husband, Paul, for staying home this evening with Gwyneth and Evan for Daddy Date Night. I know Gwyneth really looks forward to Daddy Date Night. And I hope you guys are having fun playing superhero chutes and ladders. And I will see you guys in the morning. So good night and thank you. And now we begin. I would like to introduce Louise D'Amato, who is the Director of Special Education for the Burlington Public School System. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I have a lot of questions that I wrote down, so if I forget, I can always refocus. I like to go on tangents, if you haven't figured that out already. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And let's start out, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you came to Burlington, and how you became interested in special education.
Sure. So I grew up, I'm local, I grew up in Winchester, graduate from Winchester High School. When I graduated from high school, I went to Salem State and I studied education. And at that time I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher, like everybody else that kind of goes to school.
Because they don't talk back that young.
They're fun and they're cute. And so I was always very interested in early childhood and wanted to become a kindergarten teacher. When I graduated from Salem State, I was very fortunate. I got a job working for the Chelsea Public Schools.
Excellent.
And so I taught...
Teaching kindergarten?
Teaching kindergarten, full day kindergarten. So
Wow.
at that time it was just as Boston University had come in and the city had gone into receivership a little bit.
Okay.
So there was lots of learning that was happening, lots of great professional development. And so I worked with a group, I had full day kindergarten. It was me and 35-year-olds from 8 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Just me, yeah, just me.
Holy guacamole, Batman.
And at that time, you had no specials. You had no art, no gym, no music. So it was me and 35-year-olds.
That's
from,
insane.
It was busy. Yep, I was young and I was energetic and I was happy to have a job and we did great fun things. And
Anything above 20 should be, illegal.
Yep. I'd come home at 4:30 in the afternoon and I would nap on my couch probably till the next morning. And then the city went into receivership and I lost my job. I was kind of, last one in, first one out. So at that time I kind of struggled to kind of trying to find my way a little bit and where I wanted to go next. And I was very fortunate. I got a job working for Head Start in Gloucester.
Oh,
and
okay.
So it was a very exciting opportunity for me because at that time Head Start worked, it was kind of whole family approach. It was very collaborative, kind of bootstraps. You worked with the family, you worked with a lot of other different service providers. And it was the first time that I really had the opportunity to really work with the whole child, work with the family. And they were kids, from impoverished backgrounds that had a lot of needs. And it really made me kind of look at development in a different way. And at that point I did go back to school and I got my master's from Lesley University in special education.
I have a friend of mine going to Lesley University for special education right now.
So I finished there, and at that time, then I had my children, and so I was kind of in between things a little bit.
And that changes everything.
It changes everything. So I was very fortunate that I was able to stay home for a couple of years with my daughters and kind of just putted around a little bit. I did some work in Stoneham as a tutor, working with middle school kids. So I was able to kind of have. It was a big switch. So I was very fortunate to have a job and be able to make a little money and still be home with my girls because I only worked a couple of days a week.
Okay.
But in order to do that, it had to be middle school. So again, another perspective of kind of development.
And when
how
you
kids
did the Head
develop.
Start, is Head Start just preschool or do they?
It was just preschool. So it was
Okay.
3 and 4 year olds.
Okay.
Yes.
So it wasn't a
Yes.
huge transition,
No,
not like
yeah,
junior
no.
high.
Yep, so it was just the young
Okay.
ones. And then I got a job working in the Beverly, so the girls kind of got a little bit older. It was time for them to
Okay.
go to preschool, and I got a job working for the Beverly Public Schools. And at that time, they were just opening their integrated preschools.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was really a great opportunity for me and another one of my colleagues that I'm still very friendly with to kind of develop those programs and begin
Okay.
implementation. So we did a lot of work around kind of developing curriculum and starting programs, and we developed their first programs for children on the autism spectrum, kind of
Okay.
full-day programs and things like that. So I was in Beverly for a long time, made a lot of great connections, worked with a lot of wonderful families, lots of kids that are now probably many of them going off to college. It was, that long ago. And so I kind of was looking for a change, looking to kind of expand my horizons a little bit. And then I became a team chairperson in Woburn for the Woburn Public Schools.
Okay.
And in that role, I worked I did their preschool programs, but then I also ran one of their elementary schools as well as their autism programs. So I
Okay.
did kind of 3 to 12 kind of in terms of their autism programs, kind of really developing and
3 to 12, like age?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Kind of developing programs and really working with families and teachers and looking at curriculum and different pieces like that. So that was a great learning experience for me, kind of really working with kids with very different disabilities
Yeah.
and families. And then the opportunity came in Burlington where they were opening the Early Childhood Center and the Integrated Preschool,
Okay.
which had for years been run by the Lab Collaborative. And
Okay.
so it was probably about 6 years ago now. Am I year 6 in Burlington? That they took,
What year is it?
Yeah, that they took the programs over from the collaborative. So I started the programs here in Burlington, the early childhood programs. So
Okay.
when they
Now,
kind
what's
of-
the difference between the early childhood program and lab?
So the Burlington Early Childhood Center is run by the Burlington Public Schools, and it's just
Okay.
Burlington students. The Lab Collaborative is a collaborative, so Lab stands for Lexington, Arlington, Belmont, Bedford, and Burlington. So
Oh.
so it's a
Now, is
collaborative
that the program that's over at,
Memorial
Memorial
schools.
School,
Yep,
okay.
and so those children in those programs over at Memorial have significant impairments. So they're
Okay.
children that really need small group, direct instruction, really specialized
Okay.
curriculum. So I
and
did.
it's not integrated? Oh, we'll get to that later.
It has opportunities.
Okay.
So I did that for a little bit, and then Dr. Estep, who was my predecessor, retired, and Dr. Conti had asked me to kind of step in for a little bit because she was leaving mid-year and
Okay.
give it a whirl, and so we did that, and it kind of worked out,
you're still
and I'm still here. So I learn something new every single day, and I work with
that's
great people that really make coming to work fun and exciting. So.
Excellent. I'm glad you stuck around.
Yeah, yeah.
And just a slight tangent, I know. You said you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
We have zoo membership, and I went to the zoo, and I've been there a bunch of times, and every time I see something that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like they had the monkeys that were screeching. I can't remember what kind of monkeys they were, but I think you could hear them all across Stoneham. They were so loud. So, okay, I digress. Told you I digress. So, you had mentioned that the integrated preschool, Burlington Early Childhood Center, has been around for 6-ish
6 years.
Okay.
Run by the Burlington Public Schools.
Okay.
So Burlington has had early childhood programs, but they were run by the collaborative.
Okay.
So
Now,
I
did
think-
they just grow so much?
I think that's exactly what happened. So originally the programs were kind of small, and so all the feeding communities into the collaborative all kind of fed into the early childhood programs. And I think we're doing such a great job diagnosing children early now, and really
Okay.
kind of that early intervention piece that the programs have just grown. So when I started, we were 4 classrooms.
And now there's 8 over
Now
there,
there's
right?
8, yeah. So it seems like we're adding a classroom
And there's a
year.
wait list this year, too, I heard.
Yep, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
We'll have to have a 9th classroom.
Yeah.
Not this year. Okay. So, what ages, I think we've kind of started to allude to this, what ages do the Burlington schools pick up working with the kids, and how long
Sure.
do the kids last in the program?
So the federal mandate is 3 to 22, so from age 3 to 22. So for kids that are just turning 3, before they feed into the public school system, they go through early intervention. So Tom
Okay.
Mystic Valley Early Intervention is our catchment area for our
Okay.
early intervention kids. So in the kind of the differences is when kids are identified in early intervention, those are kids that are kind of at risk, so they're kind
Okay.
of had a tricky birth, or they're
Premature,
pediatricians,
or-
lots of different pieces. Their
Okay.
language just isn't developing for whatever reason, and those typically are referrals that come from pediatricians to the early
Oh, okay.
intervention. And then at 2.5, if it looks like there's still a disability in process or in play, then early intervention makes the referrals to the public school system.
Okay.
So many of the children, I would say to you, 98% of the children on IEPs in the integrated preschool come out of our early intervention system.
Okay, now what does IEP stand for? I've heard so many people say, oh yeah, this kid has an IEP. I'm like,
Yeah. So when a child has an identified disability, then we put them on an individual education program.
okay,
or
so
an
that
IEP.
disability could either be physical, developmental, emotional,
Many different things.
occupational.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we kind of say, there's a whole kind of flow sheet that we follow when we do initial testing. So
Okay.
is there a disability in evidence? And if we answer yes to that question, does that then impact their ability to kind of access the curriculum or to learn?
Okay.
And so you can have a disability but not need an IEP because it's not impacting your ability to kind of access or
Okay.
participate. So there's kind of a procedure or process that we follow.
Okay,
in
and this
terms
is
of
when the
that.
child's 2.5?
So that could happen at any time.
Oh,
An initial
okay.
evaluation could happen at any time. It could happen at 3. It could happen in 4th grade. It could happen at 16.
Whenever
It
it's noticed.
Whenever, there's kind of a
Okay.
little glitch in development.
Now, how
So-
often are the kids retested?
So by federal regulation, we have to retest children every 3 years.
Okay.
So that would be from their initial time that they're tested. So every 3 years, we kind of relook at eligibility and whether or not children are still eligible for special education services. That being said, there are annual reviews that happen yearly. So once your plan is written,
Okay.
so if your plan is written of September, you're going to have an annual review of September of the following year.
Okay.
So there's always kind of that process, that yearly process. However, I always like to tell parents that IEPs, or individual education programs, are fluid documents, so they can
Okay.
change at any time. So
Okay,
kids,
so the kid's not really put in a
no,
track or
no,
labeled.
Not at all. So kids grow and change all the time, especially young ones. So
You think?
you have 2 little ones at home that change
Yeah.
every day, right? It's
Oh, yeah.
amazing how things kind of change. And so what we say is, this is what things look like today, and this is
Okay.
what we need to kind of put in place today in terms of services. But if children kind of grow and develop, those are very exciting. I'd say to parents, those are always exciting conversations for us to have. Like, look at, we put these services
And they
in
might
place.
have like some kind of disability in September, but by October,
It
they've
looks
caught up
different.
already.
Yep. Typically, it doesn't happen that
Well,
fast.
yeah.
Yep. But sure.
But on the developmental scale, there's such a variety. Like even looking back even further, when do children start to crawl? Some kids crawl at 4 months. My son didn't crawl until after his first birthday, which was great because he wasn't mobile. When do kids start to walk? When do kids start to talk? And there's a huge,
Window.
thank you.
right,
I'm like,
yep.
span.
Right. Yep. Sure. And so we know, if we hit that window and it's still not happening, then we need to kind of be concerned. So kind of like
Take a
if-
second look.
Right. So if we're not, typically if kids aren't walking by like 18 months, we really need to kind of look at that and kind of look at their gross motor development and what's happening.
So not necessarily a
so-
red flag, but
Right.
like a yellow warning
Yeah,
light.
something's up. Yep. We want to kind of make sure that all those muscles are developing and that kids are, able to kind
Okay.
of begin. Yep.
So you mentioned that most kids before they enter the school system, like birth to 3, work with early intervention. And then you mentioned the age is up to 22.
Right.
Are they still part of like programs within the high school, or is there like a post
Yeah.
diploma?
Right. So most of the kids that stay past high school, so they don't accept high school diplomas. So these are kids that have significant disabilities that
Okay.
probably couldn't pass an MCAS exam, that
Okay.
continue to need really kind of skills around daily living, independence, and things like
Okay.
that. So they're kids that have more significant impairments that really we need to do a little bit more
Okay.
work with. Typically, those kids don't. Many of our high school kids that are on individual education programs or IEPs do pass MCAS, do get their
Okay.
diplomas. Many of them move on to secondary, to
Oh,
college and
excellent.
to post-secondary experiences. So,
Right.
so that is certainly a track.
Something to
that,
be said for the school system.
Right. Well, it's also something to be said, really our goal is always to teach kids independence
Right.
and strategies. So we all, if we were to test everybody, we all have a glitch somewhere. You know what I mean? Everybody,
absolutely.
everybody
Nobody's
has
perfect.
Nobody's perfect, right? So, how do we teach kids strategies and mechanisms
Teach
to
them
kind
how
of
to learn.
how to learn and how to become independent? Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, my next question is kind of like, do all students live in Burlington? You mentioned the lab program, which was the collaborative. Is that just preschool, or does that go the full spectrum?
So the lab collaborative we really look at as a kind of a continuum of our special education services.
Okay.
So all children on IEPs in Burlington are Burlington residents. They have
Okay.
to be Burlington residents. Children in Burlington that go to the lab collaborative also have to be Burlington residents. So
Okay.
we're not servicing children that are non-Burlington residents
Okay, so
at all.
Lexington students don't come to Memorial, or?
So a Lexington student could come to the lab collaborative,
Okay.
but that student's placed there by the Lexington Public Schools. It's a whole
Okay.
process that kind of has to be
Okay.
followed. So when we look at kind of placement, so we service Burlington students, Burlington residents
Okay.
only. So
Okay.
and so the collaborative also functions 3 to 22, and so their programs are for kids that really have trouble. Again, need kind of small
Okay.
group, have significant impairments around daily living,
Okay.
communication, need skills taught a little bit more discreetly. And really many of our students that stay 18 to 22 work with our collaborative, and they do
Okay.
a phenomenal job with kind of working in the community and job skills and different things like that. So
Excellent.
we really see the collaborative as a continuum of the services that we can provide in Burlington.
Okay.
So we work very closely with the collaborative. It's the Donna Goodell, who does their elementary programs. Her office is right next to mine in the special ed department, and Patrick Barbieri, who's the executive director for the collaborative. We meet with him regularly and kind of talk about programming, and really their job is to kind of service the kids in what we need as a district. So if we're kind of seeing trends in development, so
Okay.
kids that really autism which is
Okay.
big, so kids that really are falling on the lower end of the autism spectrum, they tend to work with for us.
All right. How are special needs defined today? Because I'm thinking of my limited knowledge of how special needs kids are treated today seems much differently or much different than when I was in school 30, 40 years ago. What is the definition of a special needs student? Anyone who needs an IEP? Or?
Yeah, I guess I want to be a little careful as to how we define it. I think there are kids that kind of may struggle for a little bit in reading, but lots of kids struggle a little bit in reading or math, and so when kids are learning new skills, sometimes that takes a little
Okay.
bit more time, or we need to do things a little bit differently. I think kind of one of the exciting things that we do in the elementary schools especially is that we work really hard to blur the lines between general ed and special education,
Okay.
so that all teachers take responsibility for all learners.
Okay.
So if you were to go into a special ed classroom, if there's a child that doesn't have an identified disability but is struggling with reading, might be in that group or might be working with that teacher or having direct instruction around that skill. I think we're very careful about how we look at kids and learning and
define it, because that
Yeah.
kind of labels.
and I think sometimes we do have to label it.
Okay.
I think for kids that are Down syndrome, clearly you can look at a child and know that they have Down syndrome. Kids
Or
that are on the
autism or-
autism spectrum and really need small group direct instruction and things like that. But I think for the general population or the kids that have more
it's less as a-
specific.
So it's not really a classification, it's more approached on an individual scale now?
Exactly.
Okay.
I think that's how we like to look at it. I don't like to look at kids and say, "Oh,
You're special.
yeah, she's got a little reading problem." I think we like just kind of, what is it? What is the presenting condition, and what is it that we need to do
Okay.
to support them?
Okay, condition or conditions or, okay.
Yeah.
A lot of these questions you've already answered.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. We already discussed that special needs incorporate physical, psychological, developmental needs. And when are they, I think you kind of mentioned this, but I'm not sure if you want to elaborate, how and why are children first tested to be considered, you know, I don't want to label it special because we just talked about
or need
labeling it
support
special.
and development.
Yeah,
Need a little support. So
need some developmental
sure. So
assistance.
I think kind of early childhood, we get a lot of those kids typically from early intervention. And then a lot of times we like to kind of give kids time. So, you know, parents will say, you know, in first grade, oh, they're not reading yet. Well, we're still teaching them how to read.
Yeah.
So we can't say that they're a non-reader until we really provide them the opportunity to learn those skills and to really give them instruction in that. So, you know, sometimes the early years, the early elementary years, we might say to a parent, like, just, we're with you, we understand, but take a deep breath with us and give us the opportunity to provide instruction, because we can't determine that there's a problem if we haven't taught them. So we want to be able to teach them first. And it's kind of a collaborative process. In the elementary schools, through our Response to Intervention initiative, we talk about kids all the time. We have a lot of data on kids, and we're constantly talking about kids. So there's kind of a process that it goes through. So we kind of first start with kind of our classroom. So teachers meet as groups. So all the first grade teachers might meet as a group and say, I have this little one, I'm really concerned. She doesn't seem to be getting, you know, CVC words, or really is kind of really struggling with her sight words, and what can we do? So people kind of brainstorm. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? How about if we give it 6 weeks and kind of do a little bit of an intervention. And then if they're still, after a little bit of time, like, geez, we tried all those things and it's still not working, then we go to the next, what are the interventions that we can put in place to kind of see. So sometimes, like, a first grade student might need a double dose of our phonics programs, our foundations program, or they might need, you know, their sight words broken down a little bit more. And then if they're still not getting it, then we go to our problem-solving team meetings, and in our problem-solving team meetings, our school psychologists run those. So the school psychologists sit on those, our principals sit on those, a special educator, the classroom teacher, and we really talk about the child, and we talk about kind of all the data. So, all right, we started, and she was really struggling with her sight words and wasn't getting anything. And then we put this intervention in place, and we gave it 6 weeks, and we tried and it still wasn't working. And so at that point, do we need to kind of go to special education testing? So that's kind of, you know, we want to kind of problem solve a little bit and provide kids with interventions, because sometimes it is just a developmental thing. So like you had said earlier, you know, if we start in September and it's done in October,
I know it's not
but that's not a disability.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So that's a child that just needed maybe a little bit more direct instruction, or needed a double dose of an intervention, or just needed developmentally a little bit more time. Correct, right. So we want to make sure that before we label a child disabled, we've really given them all the opportunities to close those gaps.
Okay. Cool. Now, how has special education, I mean, we talked about, you know, decades ago, how it's changed. Have you seen a change in approach over like the past 5 years, over the past 10 years? Has it been gradual, or have there been like really major schools of thought changes in how we approach?
Yeah. I think we know so much more about kids now. I think we know so much more about children early, about kind of their development. I think through programs like early intervention and pediatricians being aware of things, I think we really have great opportunities to catch kids early and give them what they need when they're younger, with the hopes that we can close that gap. And so I think, you know, there's certainly a lot of trends and a lot of support around early intervention programs. And even, you know, today I met with the guidance counselors from the middle school and some special education members from the high school, and we talked about kind of how do we do things preventively, kind of almost looking at sixth graders so we don't have
like
trouble.
A proactive approach.
How are we always kind of more proactive? And I think that, you know, we know more about red flags that we see and kind of developmental pieces that we see. I think our medical community is much better at kind of, you know, recognizing different things. So I think, you know, we are so much more aware of children and where they come from. And I think there's so much more research about good scientific methods that we use that we know are the right things to do for kids. So, if we have a child that's dyslexic, we know that they need a structured phonics program in order to learn how to read. And we know what the time frame that looks like that and how much of that intervention that they need. So there's not a lot of guessing games anymore with really.
So it's basically just through experience that we've learned.
Yeah, research, lots of great research, people doing lots of great things at lots of great universities. Yeah.
Excellent. In Boston, the greater Boston area has like a bazillion universities.
And we have a lot of great collaborations that we work with. We work with this woman, her name is Dr. Stephanie Sperdosha, who is a literacy specialist, a special education literacy specialist that also teaches at Lesley University. We work with a man named Dr. Scott Metheny, who runs the psychology programs at UMass Boston, who's really helping us work with our problem-solving models in terms of looking at eligibility for children. We work with a man named Dr. Greg Hanley, who is a BCBA, who runs the programs out at Western New England College. And he does a lot of work with us around kind of really developing positive behavior support systems. So we are very fortunate to work in an area that's so rich in resource, but then also to have relationships with great people that in Burlington it's an exciting place to come, and they're happy to come and support us. So we're very lucky to have those relationships.
Well, this leads into my next question. So before moving here, again, a little personal side story, before moving here, I had heard wonderful things about the school system in general. And now that my kids are starting to enter, I see it. And it's just, I'm thrilled to no end. And I keep saying whoever invented preschool was a genius, but that's beside the point. How does Burlington rate statewide or nationally in their educational system or their special educational system?
I think we have a great system. I think we have, one of the things that makes my job easy is that we have an extremely supportive superintendent. So Dr. Conti is really an advocate for all students and for learning for all students, and he is always right there for us, kind of going to bat with us, seeing the needs, seeing the students, and really making sure that kids have what they need. We have the most amazing school committee. We really do. They really are supportive of learning and students and what students need, and they will find it. If we need it, they will find the money, and they will go to bat for us.
Oh, that's excellent.
And I think that's every part of education within the district. Certainly we're very fortunate in special education to have small class numbers and lots of support staff. We have.
So you don't have to relive your first job
No,
experience where you have 30 kids.
I mean, we have school psychologists in every building.
Wow.
So, we have guidance counselors in every elementary building, as well as, we have 4 guidance counselors at the middle school, or 4 to 5 guidance counselors at the high school. We have full-time speech and language pathologists in every elementary school. We have
a lot of school systems don't
have
that.
Right?
So.
We have occupational therapists, we have physical therapists, we have board-certified behavior analysts. So we have lots of supports in place that really make my job easy. But it does go back to the resources.
You have the tools that you need.
Right, and it goes back to the district's commitment to those resources. So how fortunate, not only do we have them.
Go Burlington!
Right, not only do we have them, but it's a proactive and supportive approach by both our superintendent and our school committee. So very fortunate, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, back in your introduction, you were talking about the integrated preschool being fairly new, having been separated. When I studied education in college, we used the term mainstreaming a lot. Does mainstreaming still exist? Has it morphed into integrated? What's the difference?
So when a child's mainstream, they're basically in the classroom all the time.
Okay.
So what we really do, we use the word inclusion a lot, and inclusion opportunities. And so a child that has disabilities or really struggles to learn, when they're included with their typically developing peers or their age group peers, we want that inclusion to be successful. We want the child to be successful. We want it to be it's kind of successful for everyone. So we don't want to set children up for failure. So if we know a child really struggles with math, and that when they're faced with math problems, they become overwhelmed, they shut down, well, we're not going to include them for math. We're going to teach them math in a smaller setting. We're going to break down those skills, always with the hope that they can learn those skills and then bring
And
them
then go
into the
back.
larger classroom.
Okay.
That's always our goal, to really look at kids in the least restrictive environment and to provide them those services in the least restrictive environment. But we also want to make sure that they have the skills and the strategies to do that, and that when they're there, it's meaningful. So we don't want them in the classroom because it's math time.
Oh,
We want
okay.
them in the classroom because it's math time, and we know that when we taught two-digit subtraction, in a small group setting, they really got
They
that.
could
And
do
so
it.
they can be in that classroom, and they can be part of that large group instruction, and then they can raise their
So
hand
setting them up for
success, and they can participate, and so they feel really good about that time, and that they like,
Excellent.
you know what, I am good at math. You know what I
can
mean?
do
I can
this.
do this.
I can do
And I
this.
can do this like all my other
Gee, I
friends.
need somebody bringing me in another classroom for math. I can't even balance my checkbook. Jeez.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of led into my next question. I love my cheat sheet, but at the same time, it's like, you answered that. So special needs children, are they always in the same classroom as the non-special needs? Like in general, like I know right now my daughter's in the integrated preschool, so half the students have some level of special needs and the other kids don't.
Right.
When she gets into kindergarten or first grade or sixth grade or whatever, is there still that integrated system?
So it looks a little bit different. It's easier for us to do on the preschool
Okay.
level because we don't have curriculum demands
Ah.
like they do. There's no standardized testing. Nobody's kind of
Okay.
holding us accountable, and children learn kind of through experiences, and so we provide them those experiences, and certainly we make those sure that they're literacy-rich experiences or
absolutely, yeah.
mathematical-rich experiences, so that they're developing.
But they don't
skill
have to
at this
pass a
time.
test
They don't
at
have
the
to
end.
pass a test, and there's
Standardized
no
test. They don't have to
there's-
circle
right.
and color in little circles.
But there are children on IEPs in probably every classroom, and those IEPs
Okay.
can look very different. So you might have a child that has a little bit of a hard time developing language, and they could be in that classroom, and you would never know. Almost like when you walk into the integrated preschool classrooms, for the most part,
You
you
don't know
wouldn't
which
be able,
kids.
you wouldn't be able to tell me. And in many of our
Yeah.
classrooms look the same way. And it really depends on how children are learning and what they need to learn as to how
Because I'm
those
also thinking
services are
back,
provided.
when I was in elementary school, there were the, 3 third grade classes, the really smart kids, the average kids, and the they're never going to get it
Yeah,
kids.
Yeah, kind
you
of
know.
your bluebirds and your cat. They had.
We actually
fancy
labeled
names.
it 1, 2,
Two
and
and
3.
three. Yep, yep.
And you wanted to be in the 1 class
Right.
because 2 is just in, 3, forget about it. Obviously, that's changed.
Yeah.
But so the multi-level or the not really integrated, but there aren't the 1s, 2s, and 3s anymore. They're pretty much the same classes, just limited because of space and size issues. Okay. Now, you mentioned preschool doesn't have a curriculum.
Well, we do have a curriculum.
Well,
I guess
like
I should have said that.
standardized.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are the curriculums, how does the curricula compare nationally, like Burlington schools? Because we talked about all the resources available. How do they relate, how does Burlington relate on like standardized tests or?
So one of the things that's coming into play now is the Common Core.
Haven't heard of that.
You haven't heard of the Common
Haven't
Core?
heard of that.
So that's new. So the Common Core is here, and so the Common Core is national, and so
Okay.
Massachusetts has adopted the Common Core, and so it
Okay.
is kind of a national curriculum. So this past week in our elementary schools, we've adopted a new math program that's connected to the Common Core. So we're going to be using a math program called Envisions that's all kind of connected to the Common Core. So
Okay.
actually the MCAS is going to go away.
Oh, it's gonna go.
But we have a new one. Don't worry, we have a new one.
Of course, bigger and better.
Yeah, and so there's a new assessment coming out called the PARC, and so the PARC is connected to the Common Core, and so
Okay.
and that's also
So
kind of
MCAS
going-
is Massachusetts
correct.
assessment.
Right.
So
the PARC is more of a
PARC
national.
is
Yeah.
testing everybody on that national
Right,
curriculum.
and so there are some states that have adopted, some that haven't. I think, and
Okay.
don't quote me, or I
Is there
probably
like a
should be very
time frame
careful.
where schools have to adopt this curriculum? Do you know? I'm not going to ask you what the timeline is, but is
in
there...
terms of the Common Core, I think many districts now
Okay.
have adopted
So they're going
it.
to eventually have to adopt
Yes,
it.
and everybody's going to have to go to the PARC assessment, so the MCAS will go away. And so I think in order to kind of be successful with your standardized assessment, you're going to have to really look at the Common Core.
Okay, now how is your program with the special needs areas affected by standardized tests, standardized curriculum? Are you are you affected by it at all?
Well, again, it's kind of a little tricky. It's also very individualized based.
Okay.
So we certainly have students that participate in that might be wonderful mathematicians and are participating in math, but might need a little bit more support around reading. We have lots of kids that take the MCAS and are very successful with the MCAS. Within on an individual education program or an IEP, there are accommodations that we can put in place for MCAS. So if there's an accommodation that a child uses every day, then we can put that accommodation into the MCAS.
Can you give me an example of an accommodation?
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, I'm not quite sure I know what that means.
So if a child uses a calculator every day for math, then that could be an accommodation. If a child needs directions read to, if a child needs a small group setting, a lot on the MCAS is because they have to fill in those bubble sheets, tracking. So if a child needs support, tracking. But those are accommodations that have to be in their individual education program, and they're accommodations that they're using every single day in order to access and be successful.
So it can't just be to...
We can't all of a sudden decide the day before the MCAS, we're going to read that to them.
No problem. Yeah, it's in the IEP now.
No, we can't do that. No, and it's regulated. The state watches that very closely, and so the principals are very, very careful about that because it can get a little tricky. So the principals have to fill out a form as to what accommodations are being used and why, and so that can be audited.
That's overwhelming for the principal to go back and look through all those IEPs and everything.
Well, we have wonderful database systems now, so we have
now,
right? So it's a little bit,
What would we do without computers?
I know. So it's a little bit easier now that we have technology in order to kind of do those pieces for us.
Okay. How, now on the statistical side, how big is the special, how many students are in the Burlington school system? Do you have any idea? I know, I didn't ask you that before.
That's okay.
And I'm just wondering, how does that, what percentage are
I'm not sure of the exact percent. I want to say there's probably close to 3,000 students in the Burlington Public Schools. And I think we have around 430 children on IEPs.
Okay.
So maybe 12, 15%.
Okay. I was thinking like 1/6, percentage is better.
Yeah.
And with those students, how is like a student-teacher ratio determined? You mentioned the lab program being much smaller. On the non-lab, how is the ratio determined? Does it change?
So sure.
So it's not the one teacher to 30 students.
Right. So I think again in Burlington, because we have such a supportive school committee and superintendent and really a commitment to those pieces, that class sizes tend to be very, very reasonable. So in terms of our regular education class sizes, I think typically many of them aren't over 20. I think it's very rare if they're over 20. We have pockets in some schools where class sizes are really better than private schools. Just because, but it's pockets. Like we had a small kindergarten one year, so then there's a small first grade. But there might have been 15 one year, and now this year there's 20. You know what I mean? It just
or 22.
You get lucky for a year.
I love those years.
Right. In terms of kind of special education, so the preschool, we have to have, it's called a 49-51 split. So there needs to be, that.
It can never be greater than
it can't. So those classrooms have to cap at 15. There can't be any more than 7 special needs kids.
That's what it is at the preschool.
Yep, there's a teacher and an assistant. And again, because we have such a supportive, that there's a teacher, an assistant, and a teacher's aide in those classrooms. We do have some district-wide programs. We have a program at Pine Glen, which we call our Developmental Skill Center. And so those are kids that have their high-functioning autism, Down syndrome, kind of different type of impairments that really impact their kind of language and communication skills.
Okay.
So those classrooms, we have, a teacher that has a master's degree in special education,
Okay.
and there's 2 or 3 teaching assistants. And those programs we always kind of look at on a fluid basis again, kind of depending on the needs of the kids, depending how kids are presenting as to
Okay.
what they need. We work really hard to have those kids included into the regular education classrooms, but they need support when they're there, so that we make sure that there's enough support personnel for those kids to be successful. in the
Now,
classrooms.
just on a more personal note, you had mentioned that there is a special class at Pine Glen. Do each one of the 4 elementary schools have the same special class, or do
No.
all of the autistic kids come to Pine Glen?
So they're district-wide programs.
Okay.
So in terms for the Burlington Public Schools for district-wide programs, we have a program at Pine Glen, and we have programs at Francis Wyman. The Lab Collaborative has classrooms in our elementary schools as well. So they're at the Memorial Elementary School, and their autism programs 3 right to 5th grade are at the Memorial School.
Okay.
And then the Lab Collaborative also has a program that it's going to start at Fox Hill, which would be a K-5 program, kind of a K2 and a
Okay.
3-5 as well.
Okay.
So there's specialized programs in every school.
Okay.
But
See, I want to entertain our viewers at home, but at the same time, I'm gathering personal information going, okay, which one of my kids' friends is going to be here?
yeah.
Okay, I'm being selfish, I know. I should stop. Now, occasionally, is there, in one of the regular classrooms, is there ever a need for a student to have his or her own personal teacher's aide?
There is, and we have support personnel in classrooms.
Okay. And how is that determined? Is it?
Yeah, it's really determined by need
Okay.
in kind of what a child needs to kind of access and be successful. I don't really like personal aides because it becomes
Okay.
almost like a mother-child relationship sometimes,
Okay.
that it becomes too dependent. And really, again, our goal is always, how do we make kids successful? How do we give kids the strategies they need in order to access? And if you always kind of have somebody hovering over you and prompting you,
You're
and
enabling them.
You at times
yeah.
it can feel like that. So sometimes the child needs can be part of the curriculum in the classroom, but might need things broken down a little bit. Maybe might need visuals for directions or things like that. So that does happen occasionally.
Okay. Throwing this extra question in that I told you about before we came on the air. With the integrated setup that seems to be throughout Burlington Public Schools, are there ever kids that are placed with some special needs kids whose their behavior tends to mimic the special needs, or do they regress, for lack of a better word?
So I think we see that mostly in the preschool setting,
Okay.
in our early childhood settings. And what I would say to you is that kids are always behavior always functions for a reason. So what is the function of the behavior? And it's typically either attention or escape. So they're either trying to escape something or they're looking for adult attention. So when behavior is regressing, it's usually because they're looking for adult attention. So one of the things that we try to do really well in the preschool is set up kids for success. So really paying off good behavior. So I know
Gotta
all
love
the-
positive reinforcement.
Right, positive reinforcement. So,
I'm trying that at home too, and it's been a challenge
we
with
can
my
help you
younger
with
one.
that. So I know all of the classrooms have positive behavior systems in place, so kids are really always getting rewarded for doing
we
the
heard
right
about the
thing.
treasure box.
Yep, the treasure box. So I love how you're sitting on your rug. I'm so lucky that you're sitting so nicely on your rug. Your legs are crossed, your hands are folded, you're ready to learn. Thank you for doing that. Go put a star on your thing.
My daughter
So-
comes home. Where'd you get that? Little Matchbox car. I walked down the hallway today. I'm like, well, you better.
Right.
I didn't say that. I'm like, good for
But
you.
that's how we do. So we give kids
Yeah.
attention for doing the right thing. So we always want time in to be more rewarding than time out. So if you're in time out, you're missing something.
Yeah.
So you want it to be more rewarding to be part of the group. And kids want to be part of the group.
Yeah.
They do. They want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And when they're struggling, they're never struggling for no reason. There's always something going on there.
And punishing them or recognizing the negative behavior just brings them further
Right,
down,
right.
so it's harder to
Right.
pull them back up.
Right. So we always
Okay.
want to kind of be positive and
Keep that smile.
Right. So, but we want to celebrate all the good things that they're doing all the time, and let them know that. No running. I love how you used your walking feet. That was great. You did such a nice job going from the bathroom to your classroom, and you walked the whole time, and you kept your hands by your side. You're the best. High five. So much nicer than go back and walk, you know.
Although I'm tempted to try that with my kids
Right.
running up and down the hallway.
Right.
All right, go back.
But in schools, we have the power of peers, too. Yeah. So they want to be part of the group. They want to be with their friends. They don't want to be signaled out. So, you know, we're very fortunate. You know, when I ran the early childhood programs, parents would always say to me, how do you do that? And I said, because we're so structured. We're so predictable. We're so routine.
We're so predictable.
But you couldn't run your house like that. You can't run your house that way. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. It's time to sing a song. You can't. You know, but we have.
Oh, but some of us try.
Right.
No, it's 3:58. You can't watch TV yet.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
What? Total tangent. What training does someone need to become a special needs educator? Like I was trained as an elementary school teacher. What would I need to do if I wanted to teach in any Burlington school, you know, but a special needs classroom?
So many of our teachers, I would say to you, probably 98% of our special education teachers have master's degrees in special ed.
Okay.
So they typically start out regular ed and then for whatever reason, you know, kind of change track. We have very few teachers that have just bachelor's degrees in special education. So
Well, I think the rules of teaching now, don't they
changed a lot.
need to have a master's degree regardless of level?
Correct. Yep. But you can start, and then there's kind of that waiver
Like the
process.
5 years
Yeah,
of-
that kind of 5-year window. Exactly.
Okay. And the degree to become a special needs teacher has to be in special education?
So
Or just,
so
you know.
we have lots of different certificates now. Just
Okay.
like so we have teachers that get degrees in reading, or we have teachers that become BCB. The BCBA or Board Certified Behavior Analyst is kind of a big thing
Okay.
now. We have teachers that have severe special needs that are interested in working with kids with more significant impairments. We have kids with, teachers with moderate disability certification, kind of
I
depending.
know what you
on what they do.
meant.
Yeah.
Glad you caught yourself because I'm
Yeah.
like, uh-huh. Okay. We mentioned sometimes there are teachers' aides to assist certain students. Does that teacher's aide follow the student through his or her academic career, or is it like once in the sixth grade, the teacher or teacher's aide stays in the sixth grade and
We have very few instructional assistants that follow.
Instructional assistants, sorry.
That's okay. That follow kids throughout. Typically, kind of one of the exciting things about our instructional assistant positions is I almost call them like they're my farm team. So they kind of come in and they when positions open up because they've
Triple A
learned
teaching.
but they've learned the Burlington way and the
Okay.
Burlington system, that they tend to be our top candidates for positions
And
as
plus, the
they
kids
open.
don't really know the difference because they've already seen them in the classroom. They don't know the difference between,
Right,
you
right.
know.
Right. So typically, our instructional assistants do not follow children, and if we get an instructional assistant that's really strong, typically in a couple of years you'll see them as a classroom teacher. So,
Now, again, personal note. Now, my daughter has a new teacher in her preschool class. Now, did you say she was one of the farm team
yep.
members
So
as well?
so Megan, when Megan,
Okay, I wasn't sure if I could
Yep,
mention
you
her
can
name or
mention
not,
her
but-
name, sure. So
Megan, we're looking forward to
Right.
being a
A
what
jungle
is it?
jammer.
A jungle jammer. We've been dancing around the house. Jungle jam. Sorry. Okay.
So Megan Rafferty, when she graduated, she came to us as our permanent sub.
Okay.
So she worked in the integrated preschool for a year as a permanent sub, and then thought she wanted more of an elementary experience, and then went to one of our elementary schools. I think she went to Francis Wyman
Okay.
as a permanent sub, and then she was an instructional assistant in our program over at Pine Glen. So when the position opened up, and she interviewed for it, she certainly was a natural for that, and so we're very excited
Excellent.
to have Megan.
And we can't wait.
Yeah, she's
We
great. Megan
cannot
is great.
wait.
Yep. Very lucky to have Megan in the Jungle Jammers. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I love the name too. It sounds
Yeah.
kind of like, I'm jamming.
Yeah.
I'm jamming. Okay, we only have like less than 10 minutes left, which is amazing. So I want to, kind of take a more global approach. What can parents do to assist the school system in bringing all the kids up to that level of performance that you'd like to see?
So I think one of the things that we work really hard to do, and it's always a work in process, is to have really strong relationships with our families. And so, especially on the early childhood level, they really, we all have to work as allies in development, so you kind of your pediatrician, your parents, your teachers. And so even as kids kind of move up, that we really want to have collaborative relationships, always kind of talking and communicating. And teachers are always available. Parents always say, oh, I don't want to be that parent. It's okay. That's why we're here. This is
Oh,
what
I'm
we
going to
do.
be that parent.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But you know what I mean? Don't let things fester. Call us. Have a conversation, and don't apologize. Parents spend so much, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to call you. It's fine. It's fine. That's why we're here, and that's what we're doing. If there's something and I would say, if there's something that's waking you up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you need to call us.
Or waking the kid up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. We need to go to school. Right. We need to have a conversation and figure those out. So, I think the more that parents can be involved in talking and sharing information and learning about what we're doing in school and communicating, then I think, we develop strong relationships, and those work best for everyone.
Now, are there programs outside of the school system that aid in the development and the educational benefit of special needs students that you know of?
Oh, gosh, I think a new one probably crops up every day.
Wow.
So that there's lots of different programs out there, lots of different camps. And I think as a parent, you need to be very careful, kind of looking at the quality and asking all kinds of good questions.
Okay.
Who are the staff? What's the training? What's the curriculum? What are you following? So there's lots of different things out there. But I think like anything else, you need to be a smart consumer and kind of really be asking the right questions.
Okay. Yeah, because when you're dealing with your child's education, you kind of need to be a smart consumer.
Right.
You only have one chance to get it right.
Right.
Unless you have siblings. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, did I say that?
Oh, you're the guinea pig.
Okay. What happens? You had mentioned earlier in the show that Burlington Public Schools work with kids ages 3 to 22. What happens on the kid's 23rd birthday?
So depending on the disability and kind of what happens, lots of different organizations then take over.
Okay.
Department of Mental Health, Department of Mental Retard, DMR, DMH. So really kind of depending on what kids, what students need or young adults need really at that point. There's lots of different job
I did say
opportunities.
kids.
Yeah, but then they're not really. They're
kids
really
anymore.
they're really young adults, aren't they? So there's lots of different kind of sheltered workshops and different pieces like that families really can access through different agencies.
Okay. Do you happen to know offhand, like, out of all the students, I don't want to say labeled, but that have some kind of special needs, whether it's an IEP or something else, what percentage of them actually do graduate through the Burlington Public School System?
We have a very high. I would say to you that, unfortunately, we do have a few that have glitches and struggle. But really, the goal is, to get them all out and get them graduated. And I think Burlington is.
Could they go on and get like a GED if they need?
Yeah, and there's lots of different options. So there's a evening academy in Burlington. So for kids that drop out, they can come back to school. So they have to work during the day. First, they have to pass their MCAS. So they have to be juniors. So they have to pass their MCAS. So there's that opportunity for them to receive a diploma or a certificate of completion. And then they have to be working during the day, and then they come to school for the evening academy. So, we're always trying to work. The letters that I hate the most is when they come across the desk because a child's dropped out of school. They're disappointing and discouraging. And we're fortunate in Burlington that those are few and far between. But our high school guidance department and our high school, we have a social worker at the high school works really, really hard with families to really, keep kids on track.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to throw this at you because it's not in my pre-prepared questions. Does the Burlington Public School have a website that parents or just anyone can access to find out some of these resources available, who to contact, departmental?
So the website is bpsk12.org, and so within that there's links to every school. I think every principal has a blog. So there's lots of information. The superintendent has a blog. The assistant superintendent has a blog. So there's lots of information that changes and on the website there's some information that's static, that kind of never changes, like phone numbers and addresses and
Okay.
policies and procedures that we follow, and then there are things that do change. I think one of the exciting things is a lot of classroom teachers blog now too, so parents can go on to. So
I love the BECC blog.
yeah,
I
it's
like
great.
go to that every
Yeah.
day. And
So, but even in, the elementary and the middle school, that you can go on and you can see what's happening in your child's classroom. You can figure out assignments and homework, and so it is a great resource.
I love it at
website.
at the preschool level, because all of a sudden my daughter will come home and she's got this either a catchphrase that she started, or all of a sudden she's interested in playing with whatever, and I look on the blog. Oh, that's
what
why
it is,
she
yeah.
wants to do it. And it was really, coincidental. For Christmas, she got one of those grow your own butterfly kits that you send away for the teeny tiny little caterpillars, and you grow them in a jar. And then we were doing it at home, and coincidentally, she was doing it in school.
Yeah.
So, our first butterfly hatched. I said, "You're growing butterflies in school too?
Yeah.
Look at your dresser, and there's, the little butterflies." So
fun.
it really is handy,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
modern technology.
Yep. Yeah, so it's a great resource. The website is a great resource.
Excellent. Well, do you have anything to add? We had about 1 minute left. I just want to make sure we covered everything.
I think there's just a few things that I want to put out there. So there is a PAC that's associated with special education. It's called the Parent Advisory Committee.
Oh,
and
okay.
Lisa DeRosa is actually trying to head that up, and
Okay.
they will do monthly meetings and workshops for families and parents. So we're going to try to get a website up on that too, and they'll
Okay.
be sharing information. So that's a huge part of kind of what they do to kind of support families and support
excellent.
kids. And then also, just kind of like you thank people. I couldn't do my job without the wonderful team that I have. So I'm very fortunate in my office to have Nancy Lyons and Tracy Doyle, who are our program secretaries that really keep the place running.
Yay.
Debbie Miller, who does a lot of work around transportation and attendance for us. And then I have phenomenal team chair people that really are kind of out there every day. And again, we're so fortunate that we have somebody dedicated to every building. So Christina Ciccolini is our person at the high school. Nicole Mattos is at the middle school. Nicole McDonald is at Francis Wyman. Alice Famavakis is at Fox Hill. Rebecca McCabe is at Memorial. We have Andrea Hayes at Pine Glen, and Andrea also does the district-wide programs at Francis Wyman. And then we have Deborah Clark, who does the Early Childhood Center.
I'm impressed that you didn't need notes for that.
No, well,
because,
they are my team. They are my people that keep things running and that really make my job easy. And I'm so I'm so fortunate to have them and to work with them. And so they really, and those are the people that for parents to kind of reach out to if they have questions or they're struggling, that they're always there.
Great. Well, thank you very much
Thank you
for
It was
joining me.
Delightful. I enjoyed
And
myself.
You get to go back to school.
I do.
Like all
I
the
do.
students are going to
Yeah,
invade in
yeah,
less than a week.
Yep.
So
So that's the fun part, to see the kids and to go into classrooms and watch them learn and grow and develop. So it's a lot of fun for me to develop relationships with families and kids and to watch them grow over the years. So
great.
it's fun.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed tonight's discussion. I know I learned a lot, so I'm very excited. And I also hope you have a pleasant evening and excellent end to the summer and welcome fall. Thanks and good night. Sorry.